Hey my friend, in this video I'm going to share some settings on how to use your ambient guitar swells for short bursts or long pads in the background. So previously on my channel I have made lessons on the techniques on how to use the volume pedal to create your ambient guitar swells. I've talked about also how to stack your delays together to get a consistent result, but what I have not talked about yet is that you can use ambient guitar swells for different purposes. So you could use short bursts to create melodies like this. Or you could have a long delay to kind of create a pad in the background with a big chord like this. And we are using the same effects in both cases. It's just a matter of changing two knobs in particulars to have the perfect settings to create short bursts, long pads, or anything in between. So let's dive into the settings. So I'm going to turn off my delays. You can use one delay or two delays. It doesn't really matter. If you use two, you can kind of make them sound more consistent and not hear the repeats in the background, but it's not mandatory. You can use one only. Also, you can use a reverb pedal. Now it's completely dry if I play. But if you use a reverb, it's gonna smoothen it out, right? So you can use a reverb if you want, but the main effect here is the delay. And the two knobs we're gonna look at are the repeats knob, so how many times the repeats are going to bounce, how many times the delay is going to bounce in the background. Sometimes it's called the feedback knob, the repeats knob, so how many times it bounces, and then the time knob, so how fast or how slow the repeats are going to be. So now on my Strymon El Capistan, I put the mix knob at noon so that we can hear the effect well. And if you have some modulation knobs or things like these, it's really up to taste. But then we're gonna make sure that the repeats are very, very low for short bursts, right? Because we don't want the previous notes to get in the way of the next notes we're gonna play, because we're gonna swell them really, really fast, right? So if I play on my El Capistan one note, I kind of get one or two repeats. That's what you want to aim for. Not more than that. And then the timing quite fast. I would say 400 milliseconds or less, so that it's really fast. So in my case, I used my tap tempo, tap, 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 quite fast like this. Right? And if I want to use two delays, I'm going to do the same thing on this one. So you can see it's quite fast. It's 390 milliseconds. And the repeats knob is also at about 9 or 10 o'clock so that I don't get too many repeats. Right? And the same principle applies if you've watched my lesson on how to stack delays together. You want to make them fight each other a little bit, right? So you use similar timings, but not exactly the same. So as you can see with the tap tempos blinking, they're in the same ballpark when it comes to the time, but they're not synchronized perfectly. So if I play one strike like this, right? They're kind of fighting each other. It's more, it helps a lot more if you do long swells, where what we will see in a minute, but it still helps a little bit to thicken it up for short bursts, right? So now I can play any note I want and swell the volume pedal quite fast. And it's not getting in the way, but it gives you a nice little boost, a nice little tone to go with your swell like this. So if I remove all the effects, just so that you can hear what I'm doing, what you could try right now, I'm using an E major scale, right? So you can stay in the same scale, and I'm playing this. Right? So I just put the tabs if you want to replicate the same exact thing, right? It's a nice little line, nice melodies that you can add in your songs, and you just really have to use the volume pedal quite fast. Ha, ha, ha. And you need to get used to it because when you go faster, sometimes we're going to hear the pick, right? So you really pick and then you swell. And then you come back up with the pedal real fast. So you have to practice that a lot, but when you add the effect, the delays, and I added a reverb also, it helps a lot. So that's for the short bursts, and then it's the opposite. If you want a long pad, then we want a lot of repeats so that it can resonate for a long time, and we want slower timing so that the slow time is going to help keeping it resonating for even longer. So on my Strymon El Capistan and my timeline, I'm going to put the repeats knob at about 2 or 3 o'clock, real close to self-oscillation. And then I'm going to tap a much slower timing on my tap tempo, right? Something closer to like 700 milliseconds or more, right? So tap, 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 tap. So now it's 800 milliseconds on this one and tap, tap, tap. So I'm just going to make sure that they're not perfectly synchronized if I try them at once with my volume pedal down. So you see, that's kind of what you want to get when you work on the timing, right? You want them to fight each other, but to get that kind of multiplicative effect in the background where it's slow at first, but then it's replicating and you get more in the background, so it's going to help a lot to smoothen it out and keep it resonating in the background. So when you have settings like these, it's better if you want to play big chords. And in that case, you don't want to put the volume pedal back up. You want to keep that sustain for as long as possible. So for example, I'm going to play an E major chord and I'm going to keep my volume pedal down like this. So you see, it creates a nice pad. It kind of hangs in there in the background for a very long time, but not too long, because if you want to change chords. So now I could have picked before I swelled, right? That's one of the things that you have to practice. Pick and then swell, right? Now when you change chords, you still have room after a few seconds to not get too much of a cluster in the background where there's too many notes, right? It's the same thing. If I were to use settings like these for my short bursts, it's like, wow, that's too much. Now it's quite nice because it's an E major scale, but if I wanted to change chords while I'm doing it, like you're hearing in the background, there's like a cluster of wrong notes or like too many things happening. So that's why we have the settings for the short bursts and the different settings for the long pads. So now let's try to make a song where I'm going to use both, right? I'm going to start with a chord progression to create kind of a pad, and then I'm going to change to my short bursts settings to kind of create melodies on top. So now I'm going to change the settings for short bursts on my pedals. And now I can improvise melodies on top of the chord using my E major scale. really nice. If you want to learn how to play ambient guitar and create your own original songs, you can check out my free mini course, A Beginner's Guide to Ambient Guitar. It's the first link in the description box below. It's a 45 minutes mini course entirely for free. I'm walking you through what kind of effects you need to get with my trusted recommendations, how to create the most popular ambient guitar effects like swells and drones and your clean tone, and how to start layering your different song ideas together with a looper to create your own simple song. So it's totally for free. You can enroll right now by clicking on the first link in the description box. I would love to have you there, and it's my gift to you for watching my video until the end. I hope it was helpful, and I'm gonna see you soon. Until next time, au revoir.